Another great episode of Women Who Lead. Today, we are so fortunate to connect with two of the most skilled women in the competitive market of commercial real estate, and I'm really excited. Their work is precise, very analytical, something that I'm not, and requires extensive negotiations to compete head to head with what really continues to be a very traditionally male-dominated industry. Hi, I'm your host, Teresa Palacios Smith, and I'm Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Home Services of America and HSF affiliates. And I was not aware that women only make up 37% of the commercial real estate industry, which is totally reverse of the residential real estate industry where we dominate. So this percentage has actually been the same for the last 15 years. Can you believe that? Which makes the achievements of these two women even more impressive. So let's get started. Grab your cafecito, right? And let's hear from our commercial real estate women. So with me today is Kim Matney. Kim, welcome. Kim is with the commercial division of Ambassador Real Estate, which is located in Omaha, Nebraska, in the home of the Oracle. And Kim has over a decade of experience and focuses on investments, industrial and medical, multifamily, and business brokerages. She has authored several articles in the commercial space and real estate investing, and she serves on several boards, including Sheltering Tree, Bellevue Project, Metro Omaha Properties Owners Association, and for fun, the Art Guild. And I found it so interesting that Kim is a seventh generation, second generation Nebraskan. I almost said Alaskan, Nebraskan. So welcome, Kim, to the show. That's very exciting that your family has been 7 generations in that market and the work that you do. Lottie Michael, CCIM. I'm going to make sure I add that because that's really important. And she's the Senior Vice President of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Alaska Realty, which is a women-owned business, by the way. And she has over 40 years of experience in commercial real estate and has done work in directing site selections, construction, facilities maintenance, property management, and multifamily business development, just to name a few, because there's so much more to her bio that's so impressive. She's been past president of the Alaska chapter of CCIM, the Anchorage Board of Realtors, multiple listing services, and even the past chair of the State of Alaska Real Estate Commission. That is so impressive, Lottie. Such phenomenal experience. I really am. I can't wait to hear from both of you and about your backgrounds and how long you've been in the business. So let's get started because I'm really looking forward to this. So I'm going to start with you, Lottie. First of all, how did you get to Alaska and how did you get started in the business and what's your specialty? I know that we talked a little bit about it, but tell me a little bit more about you.
Well, my family came to Alaska via Lebanon. So I'm first generation U.S. citizen and second generation real estate brokerage. So I've been here pretty much all my life. About 15 years I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, affiliated with Grubb & Ellis and then with Encore International. I had to come back to Alaska for family businesses. So I've been back here for 30 years, 35 years. And I got into real estate because I needed to make money quickly and I love sales. I've always sold something. And so I've been in real estate brokerage for a long while.
But how come commercial? Because, that's a very unique, specific industry within the real estate industry itself. And Mike Fields, who, by the way, I just want to give him a shout out, really is very, he's always talked about the commercial real estate area and how different it is from agents that just do resi-mercial and how critical it is to understand the difference, which again, I did not realize there was a big difference, but there is. So how commercial, because that's very rare for women to kind of, especially since you've been in it for 40 years, to have gotten into the industry.
Yes. I got into it because I was investing in real estate beginning at age 19. So, but when I started brokerage, like most people, I started in residential. And then my residential clients wanted to start building a portfolio, an investment portfolio. So I was able to help them. And then maybe in my second or third transaction, this is in the 70s, I thought there's a lot of information I don't know, and I was concerned that I wasn't doing the best job possible for my clients. So I started focusing on commercial real estate investments. So I was selling leased investments, multifamily, build-to-suits, that sort of investment. And that's when I began taking educational classes through the National Association of Realtors. Started pursuing my CCIM designation. In the beginning, it was just for the education. And at that time, nothing was online, of course. So I would have to leave Alaska, go to wherever the class was offered, stay there for a week of class, and then an all-day Saturday exam, and then come back to work in Anchorage. And in the beginning, I was interested in just the education. And then somewhere along the line, the CCIM PIN became important to me. So I finished it and achieved the CCIM.
And that's a very unique study. And I have to tell you, I'm just so impressed with the fact that you know, and that's so true. Now, a lot of classes are available, online. But
right,
when you started, you had to be physically there, and for you to pay the cost and all that, it's very commendable. So I just want to tell you how impressed I am with the fact that you committed into the industry very early on. And I know, Kim, you've been in the business for about 10 years now, and you are very, very well thought of in your industry, in the marketplace. You work with a lot of medical offices. How did you get started, in real estate to begin with?
Well, back in 2006, I was consulting, talent acquisition and business consulting for a company that is now known as Randstad, and they're based out of Copenhagen. They had me assigned to Cisco Systems out of San Jose, and I was working with their executives in San Jose and RTP. I bought a duplex at the time here in Omaha, and I thought I should just get a real estate license. And then I was like, I'm putting in too many hours working the consulting, maybe, another time. So then when the recession hit, I found myself with a lot of time on my hands. So I went ahead and studied, passed the exam on the first attempt. And then pretty soon after I got licensed, I found Prudential, which is now Berkshire Hathaway, where I'm at. And I've been here since July of 2010. But right after I came here, I got called back into consulting. So I was doing both for many years. And I'd say about maybe 2016, 2017, I went full-time real estate and part-time consulting.
Now, are you working in the commercial side? Do you do residential at all?
No, only sell houses for friends.
Wonderful.
Started out as a multifamily specialist.
Right. Absolutely phenomenal. I used to work in the industry, so I'm real familiar with Randstad. Totally. So that's really interesting. So tell me a little bit, because we hear and we see, especially after COVID, that the commercial industry really kind of has shifted, or maybe that's my perception, because I look at office space today and the fact that a lot of people are working remote, right? I work remote. How's that affected the industry? Do you see, where's commercial going? And I know you've got to have your little magic ball, but crystal ball there, right? But in essence, Lottie, what do you think? What's happening? What challenges are you having in commercial real estate right now? Or are there any?
Yes, there are. And when we say commercial real estate, that's a very large segment. So we need to take it down and look at the different practices. If it's industrial, or if it's medical, or if it's leased investments, if it's multifamily, if it's mobile home parks. So in every one of those principles is its own challenge. So some of them are booming, some of them not so much, some of them are coming back. You mentioned the office market. So when we're driving through several markets, not just my hometown or Omaha, but several different markets, we see a lot of office space that appears to be vacant. That doesn't necessarily mean it's vacant. I don't know of any of the large spaces, at least here in the Alaska market, that are truly vacant. Most of them are leased and they're looking for subtenants. Most of them are companies, whether they're engineering companies or law firms, are trying to refigure how they're going to bring everybody back to their offices. So a lot of them are working 2 days in the office, 3 days out of the office, or the other way around. But no one that I know of is saying we need to give up our office space. They're just trying to figure out how to make our new reality more comfortable. So I think the interest rates, I think that's a bigger bubble, I think, or a bigger issue. I think the threat of recession is a bigger issue. I think the overall worldwide pandemic is an issue still. So I think those are issues, but I think the real estate market, people are coming back and realizing, hey, we lived through this. It's time to, make more widgets and sell more widgets. So I see that as a very positive and very healthy move.
Wow, I think that's so true. What a great insight, and identifying each of the pockets within the commercial real estate industry, because it is massive. And I have heard that the mobile home industry is really skyrocketed because of the fact that available, housing costs and inventory has really struggled. So you're able to put a lot of property in mobile homes into land, and it's somewhat affordable. Much more affordable than it is to build brand new from the ground up, right? So that's an area for sure. So I think that's really interesting. Go ahead, Lottie.
I'm very involved in the mobile home market in the state of Alaska, throughout Alaska. Probably broker more mobile home parks than most anyone, and invest in several. There are challenges within that market, and because of the interest in that market from REITs and private equity, the prices are being driven up. Valuations are just being driven up. And the business model is to, okay, now we raise our rents, that's the business model, to increase your NOI. And I think that's going to backfire on us. I think we're going to see, there's several communities across the country that are now talking about rent controls and controls on whether or not you can evict tenants for non-payment. So I think that business model is hurting that segment of the market much more than helping it. Certainly.
Well, Lottie, I couldn't agree with you more. And I am obviously a fighter for affordable housing and represent marginalized communities on that's my passion. And I totally get it, because I think there is, a disservice that we're doing by allowing the large REITs to invest in such a huge mass amount of properties. And then prices, rents go up, it prices people out of the market, whether they rent or buy. So again, that's a topic for another, for sure, for another session, because it is something that I worry about. If you ask me what keeps me up at night, that keeps me up at night, thinking about that and the opportunities for our, for immigrants like ours, to be able to purchase homes in the US. So Kim, tell me a little bit about your side of the business. What do you see biggest? And Lottie mentioning hybrid formats of office. I see that all the time, where you come in 2 days, but you guys have a very different approach. I know Vince does over at Ambassador. First of all, you got a huge space. Agents come in on a regular basis, and that is part of the, the camaraderie as well as the masterminding of being able to work with others. Do you see that concept also working in your commercial businesses, medical offices, and what you do?
Actually, I just sometimes will go and rent a conference room there, but there's a beautiful office there, and I do attend company-wide events, but I don't go sit there every day. I work right here where you see, and then I'm sitting in front of my client often. So I don't have a need for an office space anywhere else. Once in a while, I'll use the conference room, and I'll always attend the company events, which are awesome, like the cookouts and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that people are mostly working from home now, especially since COVID. I've been working from home since probably 2000. So I'm used to it. As a consultant, I was always based out of my house, and then I would fly to see the clients. So working from home is very comfortable for me, and now the rest of the world is coming on.
Is
to
doing
it.
the same thing. But how, on the commercial side, how's it affecting, what do you see? Because I know you do a lot of medical office, is what I read about in your bio, which I thought really interesting, because I think medical for sure is a practice that will always need space, right? But confirming that with you.
I've assisted some organizations with securing leases for pilot projects. So and that has been very fun, and really, really honored to work with these groups. Like, I helped an organization find an office space to do the first COVID vaccine testing in the US, or one of the first vaccine trials back in 2020. So I was really honored to be able to work with them on that. I also recently secured another space for medical. It was a medical use. We'll say that it's confidential medical use. So I was, pretty honored for that. Those were leases. So,
Which I think is going to be even more and more prominent, because I see the industry as coming into situations where, number one, as we look at the United States as a whole, I'm going to give you my opinion, and this is, you're
Mhm.
seeing more businesses manufacturing, more of coming back to the US because of the fact that we did experience 3 years of, of being, or 2 years of being locked down, right? Now with the logistics nightmare that we have of getting goods back and forth to this country, with the control of other countries having it. Do you see that effect, Lottie? Is that something that you're seeing in the industry as well?
You're talking about supply chain issues?
The manufacturing of the commercial side,
Yeah.
is that going to be an area? I see that growing from the standpoint that a lot of times back, 10 years ago, everything was manufactured out, but now that coming back to the US.
I think
We
some
can
of it
control.
will be coming back. And, Anchorage International Airport is the 4th busiest cargo airport in the world. So we have a lot of logistics here. And that's a big industry here. Industrial at the airport is huge. Do I see it, everything being made in this country? No, I don't see that. I think at some point we're not going to be able to compete with everything, compete with prices. We're not going to be able to, I don't think we will stomach buying everything made in this country. We're just not prepared to pay those prices. So it's cheaper to buy something made in, pick a country,
Right.
China or Vietnam or wherever. And so until that changes, things are going to be made outside of the country. Until we quit, until the Amazon model changes.
Right. Well, I wondered about the
That's
commercial.
that's just a fact, or
Right.
that's my opinion. So instead of fighting that and arguing it, for me, I have to say, okay, that's how it is. How can I assist that? How can I be involved in that?
Correct. And the manufacturing or the side of the building, right? On the real estate
Mhm.
side.
And we
So
do
I
a
know
lot-
both of you have been extremely successful in real estate. Give us 3 tips that others that are watching that about you that you can share that has helped you be so successful. Lottie, let me start with you.
I'll give you the advice I gave my nephew 25 years ago when he started. And I'm affiliated with Connie Yoshimura's office, but at that time, I didn't know Connie personally, but I watched her because she was very involved in residential development. And I haven't sold a house, including my own, in over 30 years. So that's something I just don't know. But what I told my nephew is be the first guy in the office and be the last guy out of the office. And if you're not, I'm wasting time talking to you. If you're not prepared to put in those kind of hours, you're just not going to make it. So if you're in the office, you're going to find something to do. So I think I think that's good advice.
Fantastic.
And
How about you? How about you, Kim?
Um, First thing is I show up prepared. I've done my research, I've done my homework. When I've earned that appointment with that client, I come and I'm ready. And I'm ready to have them sign my list agreement. I'm ready, or purchase agreement, whatever I'm meeting them for. And once I get the search assignment or once I earn their business, I work diligently and work very hard to my highest potential to deliver a service that they're expecting. And then lastly, I'm be respectful of everyone, stay humble, be grateful, show respect even for your competitors.
I think that's great advice, because sometimes I've had scenarios where you hear the negative, oh, you don't want to. I think that's the worst approach altogether. And I think that's great that you have that same. I think the most successful people in there really win the business because of their reputation and because how well they're able to assist their clients. Tell me a little bit about, as far as what is it that you do better than anyone else, Lottie? What's your secret superpower?
I think it's knowing the market. I think it's knowing the market and knowing who are the movers and the shakers in any given market. When I was practicing in the San Francisco Bay Area, it took me a while to get up to speed. I affiliated with Grubb and Ellis, and he said I was going to make X amount of dollars the first year, and I thought, geez, I'm paying more for my son's tuition than that. But I didn't, I just thought hit the ground running. And I think doing the research and knowing the market, knowing who the players are and knowing what they're looking at. So not what property is leasing or selling for today, but where is it going? Where does that look like in 12 months and in 24 months? And for me to be there. So I think knowing the market is the number one issue. And that kind of leads into residential people that are very good at what they do, crossing over or putting their toes into the commercial market. I've been asked to testify in court because residential agents gave really poor advice and people lost millions of dollars. And, there's a liability there. So I would not begin to venture on pricing for residential single-family homes. And I think for someone to really be successful in the commercial segment, I think we need to really know that market.
Well, I think that's so true. And anytime that you step out of your lane, you really
Exactly.
are. I mean, you really got to know and understand the nuances of the different things that your clients are looking for. And each market is very unique and very different. How about you? And then also understanding where they're coming from, right? Because if they're buying from another area, their market might be different. They have different parameters and standards, and understanding. Let me just tell you about Alaska market. It's very different. This is what you're going to deal. San Francisco is very different as far as uniqueness and what's important in each of those scenarios. I think it's really critical that people know that. Thank you, Lottie. I think that's awesome. How about you, Kim?
As far as
Your superpower, what would you do better? What do you do better than anyone else?
There's a lot of things, but if you're asking me to just narrow it down, I'm like Lottie. I have a lot of things that I do better than my competitors. That's why whenever I'm up against the big partners at the big commercial firms, I'm the one that gets the listing. I'm the one that earns the business. And it's because of my background in business consulting, talent acquisition consulting. It's my experience where I've interfaced with global executives at Fortune 3 companies. It is, Fortune 3 companies is, up there as that. So I'm able to speak in front of just about everybody and anyone. I say research and presentation and marketing are probably ways that I stand out.
Well, it certainly sounds like you and Lottie have a lot in common based on the fact is understanding your market and really what you're good at, right? Where's your niche? So tell me what challenges, we're going to talk about leadership, because obviously there's got to be adversity or challenges that you personally experience working within this male dominated business. I'd be surprised if you didn't. So tell me, Kim, starting with you, what was, adversity or anything that you faced that was a challenge, and how did you overcome it?
I work in a lot of, on a lot of industrial property. I'm an industrial triple net or industrial asset specialist, any income generating property, but lately I've really been focused in industrial last few years, also in development ground, industrial development sites and redevelopment sites. So as I'm working with a lot of the engineers, there's, I wouldn't say they're welcoming of me. I mean, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful to be welcomed so kindly, but so yes, I'm working in an area where, there's not a lot of women, it's mostly men, and they're all very kind and welcoming. So I'm grateful.
So no adversity. You having any challenges, or anybody say, oh, how about you, Lottie?
I ignore a lot of stuff. So when I feel a little bit of adversity or whatever it is we want to call it in a room, I just ignore that and just move on from there. Because to say that there's about 10% of the brokers in the Alaska market that are involved with the commercial segment. To say that it doesn't exist is wrong. I used to absolutely be the youngest person in the room, and I was always the only female. Well, I'm not the only female I'm not the only the youngest person anymore. But there's not a whole lot of females, and if we could just take those labels out, and that's what I think I've done over the last several years, decades. I don't want to be labeled any one thing. So I think as soon as I quit seeing myself that way, others will quit seeing myself that way. And I work a little bit harder than everyone else. So.
Well, that was your advice that you gave your nephew, right? So I totally get
that. Was the advice I gave my nephew, and he's incredibly successful today.
Well, and I think certainly with the roles that you've had as president of so many organizations, obviously you have stood above the crowd and certainly made yourself well known to the point where your reputation speaks for itself, right? You have proven yourself, which obviously is very seen in the roles that you've held. So I know you gave advice. How about you, Kim? What advice would you give others that might be interested in getting into commercial real estate?
I would say, do your research, do your homework, get educated, step into it and just try it. Just do a lot of research, make sure you know what you're talking about, and, just go for it.
I love it. How about you, Lottie? I know that you talked about the fact that you have the CCIM designation. And I think education obviously is a big part of that commercial real estate industry, and understanding the different tracks that are involved in the industry. So why is that important? What makes you different to have that designation? And advice would you give to others to get it?
When I'm working with clients based out of the Alaska market, so they're regional companies or national companies, the CCIM.
What does that stand for, by the way, CCIM?
It's through the National Association of Realtors, and it's Certified Commercial Investment Member. So that means something to mainly the gentlemen I deal with. It tells them that at some point in my life, I knew all of this information and that I'm qualified and experienced, because all of that comes into achieving the CCIM designation. It's the education, and then much as an intern has to prove so many hours of different disciplines, the same as with CCIM. So I think that by itself sets me apart. And then just the experience after all of these years, people, can appreciate that I know what I'm doing. And so they listen to me. They seek my advice out.
So that CCIM is how long? It's a 36 hour, 6 hour? What's the process?
No, it was, at that time, when I did it, it was 5 weeks. So it was 40-hour segments. And after each segment was a 4 or 5 hour exam. And then
So
there
it's
was a
really
comprehensive.
It's
Yes,
very
it's-
comprehensive.
Yeah, it's a difficult designation to earn, but it's worth it.
Well, that's
there's
fantastic.
different- Yeah, there are different designations. I know the residential people have designations, and when I do referrals to residential agents, I make sure that they know, that I'm giving them a good client. So I want my clients to be well represented. So
Oh, I love it.
for those designations in residential, and I know people that are in the commercial segment can appreciate the education and the experience.
Well, and I would agree with you 100% on that. And by the way, anytime that you see the labeling or lettering behind anyone's name, I have, as a realtor, have 25 plus years of experience. I've taken a lot of courses. I don't add everything on there because it would take up a whole line. The only ones I do are, for me, are the CIPS, because it's a certified international pay. You have that too, I think, Lottie, the CIPS. I thought I saw it.
No.
Not you. Okay, I saw it on somebody.
What is this? I'm
The
sorry.
Certified International Property Specialist. It's a designation that's kind of more global, and you take a lot of it. It is very quite extensive as well. And then also my at home with diversity. So all of these designations really mean a great deal of time and investment, because it costs dollars in order for us to elevate our trade. So let's talk about mentorship. Do you coach? Starting with Kim, do you coach anybody? Do you have a mentor? Or you mentee? Who was the most impactful person, especially if it pertains to this industry of you getting into commercial, that you follow or that really made an impact for you?
I knew I wanted to practice commercial real estate before I got licensed. So I didn't really have a mentor that kind of told me this is the way to go. Once I chose to come to Prudential, I have picked the brains of a couple of senior brokers, like Brian Thomas. He's amazing. I pick his brain all the time. I've worked with Gary Kuklin on some projects, and then even Mike Blackman has been helpful. So we have, I just really pick the brains of folks locally. I haven't hired a professional coach or anything other than when I was bodybuilding, I had a coach for that. But on real estate, I just pretty much, go my own way.
Oh, wonderful. How about you, Lottie?
Well, let's just back up for a minute. So Kim, you were a bodybuilder.
Yes.
The reason I ask that is because for my 50th birthday present to myself, I decided I was going to enter a bodybuilding competition.
That was me.
And I started bodybuilding when I was in my 40s and did the largest amateur competition at age 60.
Wow.
And, yeah. So, you know what that really tells us, though, is there's something inside of every successful person, not necessarily woman, but every successful person that's incredibly competitive.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. 100%.
if you don't have that, you're not going to do well. So that's why I heard what you said, Kim, and it made me smile.
You and I'll have to talk offline because I was about 8 pounds away from stage weight for a competition. It was May 16th of 2020 that COVID postponed. And by the time the show was back up again in October, I'd gained too much to get in. But I'm going to start training again. And my goal is to, compete, and having you tell me that you did it at 60, that's very inspiring. So
I did. Yeah,
it really
I did
is.
competitions, but, and this, the largest competition, the largest amateur, of course, I wasn't the oldest girl on the stage. And I think I took third, but the other ones, I was always the oldest girl, and I would tie for first. So it doesn't really matter. The age doesn't matter.
It
Male
doesn't. It doesn't.
matter.
I'm so impressed that you definitely did all that at and inspired. And the competition part for sure. That's, I think, a driving force that you have to have if you're in our roles. In any role, you have to be that has to drive you, right? Lottie, for you, mentor, mentee, any coaches that you want to talk about that really inspired you?
Without sounding too dismissive, I've really learned something from everyone. Some I've learned in a positive way, and some I've learned in a negative. Like, I'm never going to do it that way. But I've been fortunate enough to get little snippets from everyone, and I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of reading of great, that I consider great people, read their story. Warren Buffett is my hero.
Mhm.
And then I do a lot of mentoring to others. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's great. So you mentor a lot of individuals, which I think is really
Mhm.
important too. You're giving back.
Yeah. I
and
don't think of it
helping.
as mentoring. I just think of it as, talking.
Yeah. And
Have a
that's what it
weekly chat.
is, right?
Yeah.
Having that conversation that inspires other people to really want to do better and, strive for a higher goal.
Exactly.
One thing I do want to, as we're running out of time, is to, and our last question, and you kind of pivot to this question already, but favorite books. Like, do you read books, and what would you recommend if there's a book that you said, oh my, this is an aha, great book that focuses on commercial real estate, and or this is my favorite book all time that's kind of motivational, which one would you recommend?
Who is that question to?
You started off because you started about books. You read a lot of books, and then Kim, I'll give you the question as well.
Well, I've read all of the books written on Mr. Buffett. I find that fascinating. I don't really read books on investments. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I don't read those. I get more out of making myself a better person, which goes over to all of the different parts of my life, including my professional life. So I read autobiographies of different people. A book I recommend to a lot of younger people is Your Money or Your Life. And it's just talking about making sure you're cutting the deal you want, because you're trading your life for that money. So make sure that that's what you want.
I have not heard that book. Your Money, Your Life. Wow.
Your Money or Your Life. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll figure out I'll pull it up and see who wrote it and send it off to you.
Fantastic. So that's a great read, recommended by Lottie, Your Money or Your Life. How about you, Kim?
I'll be honest, I don't read a lot of books lately because I'm too busy serving clients, and that consumes most all of my time. But I do remember reading some Zig Ziglar books, years ago that were very helpful to me. And, every now and then I'll catch some Danette May. I really enjoy her health, wellness, and fitness motivation. So having
one thing you both have in common, I think, and I see it already, and I'm looking at your, backgrounds and your experiences, is that you really follow Gino Blefari's meds, which is, he does, meditation, he does exercise, diet, and sleep. Those are the things that he talks about. But obviously, the overall health and wealth and well-being is part of what you both, pursue. And I think that's really interesting, right? That you look at it, because I know Mike Fields, and he also is a bodybuilder. I mean, he does a lot of weight training. He does a lot of work in the gym. He's competing all the time in all these different tracks. So I think that has to be a very similar, you all have that same type of background. I do not do any of that. I wish I could say I did, but it is definitely something I aspire to. So as we end, I always end with your favorite quote. So tell me, what is your favorite quote that you would let our audience, want to share in? And it can be something your parents told you, or something that you always feel like this is my go-to, what I feel. I'll start with you, Lottie.
This is horrible because I'm not sure if it was Gandhi or not, but I have it taped onto my screen on my computer. To be the change in the world that I want to see.
Wonderful. Be the change in the world that I want to see.
Yeah.
How about
That-
you?
Not be an exact quote, but that's the gist of it.
Okay, so my quote, anything on kindness, any quote on kindness would be my quote. And also Wayne Gretzky's, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. So,
Yes. And that is a favorite quote of mine. I used to talk about it all the time. I used to coach soccer, and my boy, I coached got boys team. And I also coached a girls team and my daughters and my son's teams. And I would always say, take the shot. And they'd be like, they're trying to get it ready. And then of course the ball would be taken away from them because it's like, just take the shot, because if you don't take it, you don't know if you're going to miss it. You miss it already by not taking the shot. So a lot of times they don't do it because they're afraid they're not going to make it. So take those shots 100%. That's a great quote. Thank you again for both of you for sharing your experience and all that you do in the commercial real estate industry. I really found it very fascinating. I really learned so much. And I want to thank you again for everything that you do in our industry, because it's very, very rare to see women. And again, you're right, Lottie. I think it's really important that we take that out. But regardless, the fact that you're competing in an industry that is so very dominant. And I used to work in business development and work with a lot of economic developers that were bringing business to Georgia. And so I always came to head, and it was something that I found very difficult, being a Latina, being a female, not playing golf, for example, which is a huge part of, sports, in that environment, right? Being the golfer and all that. It was always a little bit of a challenge. So again, very insightful. And I know you've all inspired me, and I'm certain you've inspired others about all this work that you're doing. So I found this quote by Amelia Earhart when asked how she was able to pursue flying, because think about flying. And at the time that she was getting into it, it was also primarily men, right? The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. The fears are paper tigers. You can do anything you decide to do. You can act to change and control your life. And the process is its own rewards. So in other words, the most effective way to do it is just to do it. Again, I love it. Each of you are just doing it and doing it well. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and for our audience today for watching and following our series. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to download our podcast series, which can be found on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we have a lot of archives of great episodes that you will want to listen to when you're driving, from Anchorage to other cities. Lottie, you'll love the episodes that we have on. And please join us on August 24th, when we will be featuring and introducing some of our newest leaders running our brands and franchises. So stay tuned for more. And as we log off, don't forget my favorite saying of all, and that is to make sure you always bring other women up the ladder with you as you climb to the top. Thanks again, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend, a summer so far. And by the way, American with Disabilities Act was passed yesterday, so I want to recognize that as well for all of us here in the U.S. Thanks again. Have a fantastic summer. Until we see you next month. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.